So next we start off on page 206 here. Life is short and fleeting, impermanence. So long ago, O monks, there lived a religious teacher named Araka, who was free of sensual lust. And he taught them, short is the life of human beings. It is full of suffering. This one should wisely understand. One should go and live in a pure life. For none who is born can escape death. Just as a dewdrop on the tip of a blade of grass will quickly vanish at sunrise, just as when rain falls from the sky in thick drops, a bubble appearing on the water will quickly vanish, just as a line drawn on water with a stick will quickly vanish, just as a mountain stream coming from afar, swiftly flowing, carrying along much flotsam. I have a hard time with that because that doesn't seem to fit here so much, but I assume there's some kind of stuff floating along in the water, will not stand, but will rush on, just as a strong man might form a lump of spittle at the tip of his tongue, and spit it out with ease, just as a piece of meat thrown into an iron pan heated all day will quickly burn up, just when a cow to be slaughtered is led to the shambles, whenever she lifts her legs, she will be closer to slaughter, closer to death. None who is born can escape death. And so then he goes on to some other things and numbers of days and so forth that we might experience. And at the very end he says, meditate, monks, do not be negligent, or else you will regret it later. This is our instruction to you. So to think about the impermanence of all of these things, a little bit like we do in the Nundo practice of impermanence, and going through many different examples for that. And then in number 6 at the bottom of the page, 4 summaries. These are rather long summaries of the Dharma. And so this comes from the Ratapala Sutra. So Venerable Ratapala went to King Koravya's pleasure garden, and he sat down at the root of a tree to pass the day. So what we've got here is an older king and a younger master having a conversation with each other. And so the king's kind of asking him, why are you following the Buddha? Okay. So on page 208, the king addressed his gamekeeper, who was sitting around talking about the garden and so forth. And then down to paragraph 29, about two-thirds of the way down. Master Ratapala, there are 4 kinds of loss. What are the 4? Loss through aging, sickness, loss of wealth, and loss of relatives. So what is loss through aging? Someone is old, aged, burdened with years, advanced in life, come to the last stage. And then in 31, what is the loss through sickness? Someone afflicted, suffering, and gravely ill. In 32, what is the loss of wealth? Someone who is rich, affluent, and wealthy, gradually his wealth dwindles away. 33, what is the loss of relatives? Someone has many relatives and companions, kinsmen and relatives. Gradually those relatives dwindle away. The next page, 210. These are the 4 kinds of loss. Because they have undergone these 4 kinds of loss, some people here shave off their hair and beard, put on the ochre robe, and go forth the household life into homelessness. Master Ratapala has not undergone any of these. What has he known, seen, or heard that he has gone forth from the household life into homelessness? Great King, there are 4 summaries of the Dharma that have been taught by the Blessed One. Knowing and seeing and hearing them, I went forth from the household into homelessness. What are the 4? So now he talks about those, and they have this dialogue then that goes back and forth between them. So the first one in 36 here. Life in the world is unstable. It is swept away. This is the first summary. The second one, life in any world has no shelter and no protector. This is the second summary. Life in any world has nothing of its own. One has to leave all and pass on. This is the third summary. And then life in any world is incomplete, insatiate, the slave of craving. This is the fourth summary. So very, very concise. So he says, these are the four summaries of the Dharma that have been taught by the Blessed One. Knowing and seeing and hearing them, I went forth from the householder life into homelessness. So then the Master said, life in any world is unstable. It is swept away. How should the meaning of the statement be understood? So the Master says, what do you think, great king? Are you now as strong in thighs and arms, as sturdy and as capable in battle? No, Master, I am old, aged, burdened with years advanced in life, come to the last stage. My years have turned 80. Sometimes I mean to put my foot here, and I put my foot somewhere else. Master then says, great king, it was on account of this that the Blessed One said, life in any world is unstable. It is swept away. And when I knew, saw, and heard this, I went forth from the household life into homelessness. Then the king says, it is wonderful, Master Ratapala. It is indeed so. Master Ratapala, life in any world who has no shelter, no protector, how should the meaning of that statement be understood? So he says, what do you think, great king? Do you have any chronic ailment? And he replies, I have a chronic wind ailment. So then the Master says, can you command your friends and companions, your kinsmen and relatives, all of you present share this painful feelings so that I may feel less pain? Or do you have to feel that pain yourself alone? The king says, I have to feel that pain alone. So the Master says, great king, it was on account of this that the Blessed One said, life in any world has no shelter and no protector. And the king says, this is wonderful, Master Ratapala. It is indeed so. So then the king says, Master Ratapala, there exist in this court abundant gold coins and bullion stored away in vaults and lofts. And you said, life in any world has nothing of its own. One has to leave all and pass on. How should the meaning of that statement be understood? So the Master says, what do you think, great king? You now enjoy yourself provided and endowed with the 5 chords, the senses of sensual pleasure, but can you be certain that in the life to come you will likewise enjoy yourself provided and endowed with these same 5 chords of sensual pleasure? Or will others take over this property while you have to pass on according to your actions? And so the king says, I cannot be certain of what will happen. Others will take over my property while I shall pass on. So then the Master replies to that in a similar fashion, and then the king says, Master Ratapala, life in any world is incomplete, insatiate, the slave of craving. How should the meaning of that statement be understood? What do you think, great king? Do you reign over a rich Kuru country? Yes, I do. What do you think, great king? Suppose the trustworthy and reliable man came to you in the east and said, please know, great king, that I have come from the east, and I saw a large country, powerful and rich, very populous and crowded with people. There are plenty of elephant troops there, plenty of cavalry, chariot troops, and infantry. There is plenty of ivory there, and plenty of gold coins and bullion, both unworked and worked, and plenty of women for wives. With your present forces, can you conquer it? Conquer it, great king. What would you do? We would conquer it and reign over it. The Master said, suppose that a trustworthy, reliable man came to you from the west, and then the north, and the south, and across the sea, and so forth, and saw a large country, powerful and rich, and so forth. Conquer it, great king. What would you do? And again he says, we would conquer it and reign over it. So the Master says, it was on account of this Blessed One. The Blessed One said, life in any world is incomplete, insatiate, the slave of craving. And when I knew, saw, and heard this, I went forth from the household life into homelessness. And the king replies, this is wonderful, Master Ratapala. Life in any world is incomplete, insatiate, the slave of craving. Indeed, it is so. And so, having heard those teachings is the reason that he decided to give up the life and do the life as a monk, or the life of homelessness is the term used in here. Then we have number 7, the danger in views, and some parts of this. So the first one is a miscellany on wrong view. So here, the wrong view is talking about here the foundations of morality and especially intentional actions. Monks, do I see even one thing on account of unwholesome qualities of mind arise, so much as on account of wrong view? Monks, I do not see even one thing on account of wholesome qualities of mind do not arise, so much on account of wrong view. Monks, I do not even see one other thing on account of which, after death, beings are reborn in a state of misery, a bad destination, a lower world in hell, so much as wrong view. Possessing wrong view, after death, beings are reborn in a state of misery, a bad destination, in a lower world in hell. Conduct in accordance with that view, and whatever volition, aspiration, wish, and volitional formations he engenders in accord with that view, all lead to what is undesirable, unwanted, and disagreeable, to harm and suffering, because the view is bad. Okay? So wrong view gets us in all kinds of trouble at different kinds of levels, as is alluded to here. And then comes the blind elephant, or the blind men and the elephant there. So we have a number of ascetics and Brahmins and wanderers of other sects that held different views and opinions, and they were quarreling over these things. Then a number of monks returned and approached the Blessed One and told him what they had seen. And so he said, monks, wanderers of other sects are blind and sightless. They do not know what is beneficial and harmful. They do not know what is the dharma and what is not the dharma, and thus they are quarrelsome. Formerly, monks, there was a king who asked a man to round up the persons of the city who were blind from birth. When the man had done so, the king asked the man to show the blind men an elephant. To some he presented the head, to some the ear, to others a tusk, and then to the trunk, the body, a foot, the hindquarters, the tail, or the tuft of the end of the tail. And so to each one he said, this is an elephant. The king went to the blind men and asked them then, what is an elephant like? And those who had been shown the head replied, an elephant is like a water jar. Those who had been to the ear replied, an elephant is like a winnowing basket. Those who had been to the tusk replied, an elephant is just like a plowshare. Those who had been to the trunk replied, an elephant is just like a plow pole. Those who had been shown the body replied, an elephant is just like a storeroom. And each of the others likewise described an elephant in terms of the part that they had been shown. Then they fought each other with their fists. Even so, monks and wanderers of other sects, blind and sightless, and thus they become quarrelsome. So we may be all talking about the same thing, but we use different words, we use different concepts and so forth, and then we get to fighting with each other about all of that. So then the third one here is held by two kinds of views. Monks, held by two kinds of views. Some devas and human beings hold back, and some overreach. Only those with vision see. And how do some hold back? Devas and human beings delight in existence. When dharma is taught to them, their minds do not enter into it. So some hold back. And how, monks, do some overreach? Some are troubled by and ashamed and disgusted by this very same existence, and they rejoice in non-existence, inasmuch as this self is annihilated and destroyed with the breakup of the body, It does not exist after death. This is peaceful. This is excellent. This is just so. Thus monks some do overreach. And how, monks, do those with vision see? Here a monk sees what has come to be as having come to be. Having seen it thus, he practices the course for disenchantment, dispassion, and for the cessation of what has come to be. So that is what he's considering to be the middle way here, neither extreme view. Number 8, from the divine realms to the eternal. Monks, there are these 4 kinds of persons found existing in the world. What for? Some person dwells pervading 1/4 with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the 2nd quarter, the 3rd, and the 4th. He dwells pervading the entire world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, vast, exalted, measureless. He relishes it, takes a liking to it, and is thrilled by it. He is reborn in companionship with the devas of the Brahma's company. When he has completed the entire lifespan of those devas, he goes to hell, to the animal realm, and to the domain of spirits, the hungry ghosts. But the Blessed One's disciple remains there all his life, and when he has completed the entire lifespan of those devas, he attains final nirvana, in that very same state of existence. This is the difference between the instructed noble disciple and the uninstructed worldling. So we can both care about loving kindness, but unless we really understand the Dharma, then eventually we're going to fall from those higher realms down to the lower realms. And then he goes through with the same thing, talking about the other 4 immeasurables: compassion, altruistic joy, and equanimity. And then on 218, the very last line says, these monks are the 4 kinds of persons found existing in the world. Just the difference between whether they're instructed or uninstructed. Number 9, the perils of samsara. The stream of tears is the first one. This samsara is without discoverable beginning. A first point is not discerned. So we've seen this kind of thing before, the beginning of time kind of thing. Which is more, the stream of tears that you have shed as you roamed and wandered through this long course, weeping and wailing because of being united with the disagreeable and separated from the agreeable, or the water of the 4 great oceans. As we understand the Dharma, taught by the Blessed One, the stream of tears alone is more than the water of the 4 great oceans. Good, good, monks. It is good that you understand the Dharma taught by me in such a way. In the last paragraph, for a long time, monks, you have experienced the death of a father, the death of a brother, the death of a sister, son, daughter, loss of relatives, loss of wealth, loss through illness, weeping and wailing, and so forth. You have shed more than the water of the 4 great oceans. For what reason? Because, monks, this samsara is without discoverable beginning. It is enough to experience revulsion toward all formations, enough to become dispassionate toward them, enough to be liberated from them. So he's talking about this beginningless time. We've all gone through these things and we've all suffered in many different kinds of ways. And if we pay attention to that, then that should be enough to motivate us then to seek the Dharma, to learn the Dharma, to be able to get out of this suffering. And then finally we have the stream of blood, kind of similar in a way. 30 monks from Pava approached him, all forest dwellers, alms food eaters, rag robe wearers, 3-robe users, yet all with fetters. So these are characteristics of ascetics that he would have encountered frequently. So they paid homage, sat down, and he said, let me teach them the Dharma in such a way that while they are sitting in these very seats, their minds will be liberated from the taints of non-clinging. In other words, become enlightened. So monks, this samsara is without discoverable beginning. blood that you have shed when you were beheaded. And then for a long time you have been cows, and the cows when you were beheaded. For a long time you have been buffalo, sheep, goats, deer, chickens, and pigs. For a long time you have been arrested as burglars, highwaymen, adulterers, and you were beheaded. The blood you shed is greater than the water from the four great oceans, because this samsara is without discoverable beginning. It is enough to become disenchanted with all formations, enough to become dispassionate toward them, enough to become liberated from them. Elated, those monks delighted in the Blessed One's statement, and the minds of the 30 monks were liberated. So sometimes people just listening to him were so inspired that that was enough to achieve liberation. In other cases, it takes a little bit longer.